Good evening. I'm Allison Williams, representing the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County. Founded in 1920, the League is a nonpartisan organization with more than 700 affiliates in all 50 states. Our goals are to encourage informed and active participation in government, increase an understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League never endorses candidates or political parties. Membership is open to all people age 16 and older, and we invite you to join. Tonight's forum is being broadcast on BTV and the City of Bellingham YouTube channel. Recordings of this program will be available on the League of Women Voters Bellingham-Whatcom County website, LWVBWC.org, and at the City of Bellingham YouTube channel. The forum will be rebroadcast on BTV and on 102.3 KMRE Community Radio up through Election Day, November 8. No portion of this forum may be rebroadcast in part or in full without the written consent of LWVBWC. Questions for this forum have been prepared in advance by the League with input from the public. The Cascadia Daily News, Linden Tribune, Salish Current, The Northern Light, and 102.3 KMRE Community Radio are media partners. Tonight, we're hosting candidates for the Whatcom Public Utilities District No. 1 Commissioner. The Public Utility District No. 1 of Whatcom County was formed in 1937 by a vote of the people of Whatcom County. The PUD has county-wide authority to supply electric and water services. And the district is governed by an elected board of 3 nonpartisan commissioners who come from different districts in the county. The commissioners oversee policy decisions which operate a utility system that provides electric and water service. I'd now like to introduce and welcome our candidates, Jaime Arnett and Eric Davidson. Here are the rules that will follow this evening. The candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to each question and 1 minute for their closing statement. Each candidate has a challenge card that they can use once. The challenger has 30 seconds to state the challenge. The challenged candidate then has 30 seconds to respond. I will ask candidates to speak in alphabetical order and then alternate the order for the remaining questions. The timer displayed on the screen will count down your time. The timer will be purple as it begins, then turns to yellow when 15 seconds remain. When time is up, the timer will turn red, so please stop talking. If you continue to speak after the time limit, we may cut your microphone. Are there any questions regarding the rules for either candidate?
No.
Great. If our timer is ready, then we can start. So, Candidate Arnett, we're going to start with you with the first question, which is, share some of your personal and professional accomplishments and how they have prepared you for this position.
Great, thank you. My family has lived in Whatcom County and worked in fishing and farming, and even water quality. I've personally worked in the commercial fishing industry as an administrative executive, and I run a small therapy farm. We know with climate change, we'll have more droughts in the summer and more floods in the winter. We know that a balance must be struck between our heritage industries to ensure enough water for both fishing and farming. We can let those trials be devastating, or we can plan for the future with our public utility district. I want to do that planning, which is why I'm running. Additionally, most of my professional career has been in nonprofit management, working for both Habitat for Humanity in Washington and Oregon, and Animals as Natural Therapy, where I'm currently the executive director, running a small therapy farm, providing animal-assisted mental and behavioral health services to youth and veterans. Additionally, I've worked as a contract grant writer for more than a decade, helping community-based organizations achieve their financial goals to better serve our community. I was appointed to Blaine City Council in 2019. My passion is service, and I think my candidacy will be no exception.
Thank you. Candidate Davidson, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Share some of your personal and professional accomplishments and how they have prepared you for this position.
Well, I mean, I think I've been working on professional accomplishments and getting prepared for something like this all my adult life. I spent 22 years in the Air Force and Air Force Reserve, having to make a lot of sacrifices with family, having to make a lot of hard decisions, having to manage a lot of people, and then when I was in nursing school, and since having been a nurse, I make hard decisions every day. I make decisions that affect people. Give bad news every day if I need to, and then in the last 10 years or so, I've been working with the city of Blaine. For the first 5 years, I was the chairman of the Public Works Committee, and in the city of Blaine, Public Works is not just potholes and cutting trees, but it's also sewer, water, and electrical. So, I was pretty deep in managing that. In the last 5 years, I was elected and then reelected to Blaine City Council, and have worked closely with Public Works on Blaine City Council, and understand that every decision that I make on the Blaine City Council, whether it's a rate hike here or a property tax increase here, that affects everybody. And sometimes it has to happen. But I've been doing that for a lot of years, and I feel like my experience fits perfectly into the public utility district.
Thank you. So we'll start the next question with you, candidate Davidson. What do you see as the most important contribution of the PUD in the last 3 years?
In the last 3 years, there's been a lot. I think the most important one, I mean, there's water district and adjudication that they're working on, and there's electrical, and there's conservation. But I think in the last 3 years, they've been working really hard on getting high-speed broadband internet throughout the county. I know in Blaine, even in the city of Blaine, even in the city limits, we have what a lot of people would consider a rural area. Some people would consider all of Blaine rural in some ways. And we have a hard time getting high-speed internet out to everybody. And that's a big priority for me, and it seems like it's been a big priority for the public utility district in the last 3 years. So electrical and water, hugely important, but the work they've done in the last 3 years with high-speed internet has been great. And I mean to make it one of the priorities to continue that, so we can get that service out to everybody in an affordable way.
Thank you. Candidate Arnett, what do you see as the most important contribution of the PUD in the last 3 years?
Yeah, I would have to agree that the largest contribution is to deploying high-speed internet to all of Whatcom County. Unfortunately, our PUD is about 20 years behind in providing that service, and they've made some good strides recently. Certainly not on their own. They've been really trying to partner with Whatcom County Council and partner with the port to make sure that happens. And, just to speak to the need for that, I mean, we all just survived a pandemic together, right? Where we struggled with online schooling, with telework, with telehealth appointments. I think the pandemic really sort of sped up their process to see that we're struggling, and we need to really address the digital divide here in Whatcom County much faster than we have been. So I would say even in the last year, they've made a lot of really great progress towards seeing that happen.
Okay, thanks. So candidate Arnett, we'll stick with you. What was the PUD's biggest missed opportunity during the last 3 years?
That's a great question. And I think that also goes back to broadband. I spoke to that, just a second ago, that we're 20 years behind. The pandemic sort of revealed the need for high-speed internet and the fact that we have not been doing enough fast enough. They've done a lot of work in the last year, but they missed, thousands and thousands of dollars in grant funding over the last couple of years that could have been really beneficial in deploying that fiber. So while I, respect that a lot of work's been done in this last year, there were a lot of missed opportunities, especially around funding for the broadband infrastructure that we need.
Okay, thanks. Candidate Davidson, what do you see as the PUD's biggest missed opportunity in the last 3 years?
Well, not to repeat what Jamie said, because I kind of agree with her there, is that yeah, there's been a lot of missed opportunities. I know with the city of Blaine, during COVID, we tried really hard to work with the other small municipalities, tried to work with the county, tried to work with the city of Bellingham, and really we were able to accomplish a lot more as a group. And we found that doing that during COVID has been great, and carrying it over since COVID has been fine as well. And I think that's a missed opportunity on the public utilities district. The commission needs to work with all the municipalities a lot closer. They need to lobby a lot more in Olympia. Blaine has been very successful with their lobbyists getting monies for the city of Blaine. And if the Public Utility Commission can do that, if they can work with all the municipalities and make our needs known, there's a lot of grant money that's potentially out there.
Okay, great. Thank you. We did have a question further down in our list about broadband access. So I'm just going to stay on that topic for just a minute and give you an opportunity, and we'll stick with candidate Davidson here. Is there anything that the PUD is not doing? Is there anything more that you would add that the PUD could do to improve broadband access? Both of you have spoken a little bit to it, but here's a chance to add anything else in.
I think the PUD is doing a lot of really good work for it, but I think as a lot of governmental agencies can do, they can always reach out to other partners. The PUD can make partners with all the municipalities. They can make partners with a lot of really intelligent, really good, really forward-thinking private entities, as well as kind of thinking out of the box when it comes to internet service. I live in the middle of the city of Blaine, and for internet, I don't plug into the wall. I do my internet through the phone, right? So does it all have to go through old ways of doing things, or can new technology help us? And as new technology comes online, it should be easier and easier. And I feel like reaching out to those different organizations, both municipal as well as private enterprise, will be great for the internet challenge that we're facing in Whatcom County.
Thank you. Candidate Arnett, a chance for you to add in addition to what the PUD is currently doing and has done about broadband access, is there anything else, if anything, that they could do?
Yeah, so I think the first step that needs to be taken when dealing with broadband is to define our goals. The FCC defines high-speed internet as 25 megabits upload and 3 download. And if you just survive the pandemic, you know that's it's not the case. That would be underserved. That speed supports short bursts of data, not teleconferencing for work or school, not telehealth. I think good goals would be to start at 100 megabits per second up and down. I think we want an open access fiber optic network to provide last mile service to all of Whatcom County. I think we want a comprehensive dig once policy to ensure affordability. And while attracting competitive internet service providers, we want to retain our retail authority where additional service doesn't exist. But I also think that we really need to be looking towards what does digital inclusion mean? So in that, the definition is it involves all the activities necessary to ensure equitable access of information and communication for participant in social and economic life. That includes work, school, health, social activities. I think that equity should be built into all of the decisions we made, and we need to prioritize those that have no service or are underserved, and we need to provide some sort of affordability when we're dealing with ISP providers to ensure that low-income families can also be served.
Thank you both. Well, let's switch gears. Candidate Arnett, you'll start out answering this question, which is, how are the regional impacts of climate change likely to affect the PUD's planning for water and energy? And if elected, what actions would you recommend to address those impacts?
Yeah, so I think that climate change is already impacting the PUD. As I stated in my opening statement, with climate change, we know that we're going to have, floods in the winter and droughts in the summer, and we have to prepare for that future. I feel like there's no shortage of technical solutions for how the PUD can manage these sorts of things. When it comes to water, we have to ensure, that the tribes are able to fish. The Treaty of Point Elliott actually secures that right for them. But we also have to provide water to farmers. So the adjudication process is, while that's good, I think it's a yes and approach. There's, again, not a shortage of technical solutions on how we do that. I think that the PUD can certainly use their large and senior water right to pipe water to ag customers. I think there's a really great study brought out by the Nooksack tribe talking about how forestry practices can impact in-stream flows by up to 50%, and we can work towards conservation of water. As far as electricity goes, I think it would be great if we start looking towards generation of electricity here in Whatcom County, including things like community solar, perhaps, turbines and piped water, perhaps you're looking at biodigesters that provide electric. Those are all ways that we can help.
Thank you. Candidate Davidson, how are the regional impacts of climate change likely to affect the PUD's planning for water and energy? And if elected, what actions would you recommend to address those impacts?
Well, I mean, certainly climate change is going to affect water in the county. I mean, water in the county, water's got to be our most precious resource. We can figure out how to produce more energy. We can figure out how to make get internet service to people. But water it's just a resource that we have to make sure we work hard on. I think a long-term planning. I think working with the tribes, different municipalities, as well as agriculture, to really figure out the greatest need. And a win-win for everybody. Like Jaime said, adjudication is here, but that doesn't mean no collaboration. Working together, we should be able to come to a solution, as well as we need to encourage our municipalities to think about the long term when it comes to their own water supply. I know in the city of Blaine we have our own water system, and we are in need of an update of our water system, and we are in need of some reservoirs, and we're working on that, because the reality of the situation is there's not less people moving into Whatcom County. There's more people moving into Whatcom County, and we're growing by leaps and bounds in all municipalities. And we've got to look long term, and we've got to look on a larger scale for the future for everybody.
Thank you. I'm going to send this next question to you again, Candidate Davidson, and it gives you a chance to dive into this topic a little more. What role, if any, do you think the PUD has in the equitable allocation and distribution of water among farmers, industries, cities, local tribes, and salmon?
Well, I think with the senior water rights that the PUD has, it can be instrumental, right? But it doesn't have to be an us or them. It doesn't have to be a win-lose situation. We've got to protect our treaties, and we've got to allow people to be able to fish for salmon. That's a huge part of not just our economy, but our culture in Whatcom County, as well as we need to make sure that agriculture is protected. But there's ways to do that, and we're not talking easy fixes. If it was an easy fix, we would just do it. But we're talking a long-term commitment from not just the PUD, but the cities, the cities, the tribes, the agricultural lobby, and commercial and industrial to really get that done. But I think PUD can take a lead in that, and really kind of guide the process as much as we can, with the understanding that everybody in the county is our customer, and everybody in the county has a need, and everybody in the county, if we work hard, can be happy with the outcome. Instead of having a win-lose, we need to go for a win-win.
Thank you. Candidate Arnett, the same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, that's fine. And I think I actually touched base on some of it earlier. So like I said, in the face of climate change, we're facing significant water quantity and rights issues. So the Treaty of Point Elliott preserves the tribal right to hunting and fishing. We have a legal and ethical obligation to ensure enough water for salmon habitat. Farms also feed families and should be protected. So we have to find common ground. The adjudication process is a legal process to resolve conflict and competition on a water source. It legally determines whether each water right is legal, how much water can be used during shortages. This has already begun in Whatcom County when the state legislature allocated money for the pre-adjudication process of inventorying water. But like I said, it needs to be a yes and approach. Other things that can be done, like I said, there was a forestry practices study that was put out by the Nooksack tribe, how just tweaking forestry practices can increase in-stream flows by 50%. I think that that's a study that we should look at. Using our large and senior water right to pipe water to agricultural customers will certainly help create equity. And also conservation. A lot of farmers right now, they're using water guns for irrigation, and that leads to a lot of evaporation and drift. So, you know, there's potential for the PUD to help mobilize grant funding to farmers for better irrigation systems. It's cost prohibitive for many farmers to do that. So it's certainly something that we can help with.
Thank you. We'll start the next question with you, candidate Arnett. What will you do if elected about flood contingency plans?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the question of the hour. And I have certainly listened to both sides of arguments on dredging. I just read a wonderful article that talks about how part of the issue with the Nooksack is that it carries a lot of sediment. It's just the nature of the beast. So all of that sediment accumulates, and people want to say, oh, well, we've got to dredge the Nooksack, and that'll help solve the problem. Unfortunately, that will harm fish habitat. And also, it's believed that you would have to keep doing that because of the amount of sediment that comes down, but that the sediment isn't necessarily the problem. Part of the problem is that we're removing log jams from the river, and log jams can actually help keep the water flowing at a steady pace. And when you remove it, you don't have that. People have talked about putting in levees, but at that point, you're just, and bridges are the same thing. You sort of you create a problem further downriver. So I think that the PUD should be looking into scientific studies on, how we mitigate that. There should be we should be looking at that from a scientific aspect, and we should be again really weighing the priorities of our stakeholders, including the tribes, when it comes to something like dredging.
Thank you. Candidate Davidson, tell us what you would do if elected about flood contingency plans.
Well, I mean, and I think Jaime hit the nail on the head there. You've got to look at all solutions, right? You've got to look at both short-term solutions as well as long-term solutions. There's no easy fix to these problems, right? But we do have to care about all our stakeholders and everybody who's involved. I would hate to be the guy that has to tell Sumas and Everson you're going to flood again because the PUD was not taking into account what's going on. With that being said, you can't just dredge the river and destroy the salmon habitat. So I think we've got to look at all things. Look at all the science and see, hey, what's the best thing, and really start making plans for not just tomorrow, not just next year, but how is this going to affect our grandchildren as well as again, looking toward Olympia and as a community, trying to lobby some funds, trying to lobby some grants to really get out there and make some significant changes because I don't there's so much that needs to be done. I feel like it could be a big help if we could get some state money in here to do that.
All right, thank you. Candidate Davidson, we'll start with you for this next question. Do you think the PUD has a role in assisting the development of alternative energy use or production at Cherry Point? Why or why not?
I think the PUD has a responsibility for energy use everywhere. I think the conservation of energy, I think alternative energy, I think pushing municipalities to adopt a more energy friendly way of life, so to speak, to make it more of a day-to-day thought process. I know at the city of Blaine, 10 years ago, before I was part of anything in the city, there was a hard line of not wanting to be green. And over time, that line has shifted. And we can't move completely away from everything we've been doing tomorrow, but we do over time have to do that. And I'm happy to say that the city of Blaine is working really hard. It's a slow process. We're not a big community. We don't have a lot of extra money like a bigger municipality might have, but we're making progress. And I feel that that's important that the PUD helps with as well. I feel a push from the PUD, and working with other municipalities to make that happen would be wonderful. It's small incremental changes, and a lot of small incremental changes over time that's really going to benefit not just Cherry Point, but the whole county.
Thank you. Candidate Arnett?
Yeah, can you repeat that question?
Sure. Do you think the PUD has a role in assisting the development of alternative energy use or production at Cherry Point? Why or why not?
Oh, great. Yeah, absolutely. So jobs at Cherry Point are incredibly important to our economy. And I think we have a really good opportunity in the future as we look towards development to really assess what our values are as a community and what kind of industries will best serve us at Cherry Point. And, maybe that's a large solar project. Maybe it's a microgrid to help us increase resiliency in the future. I think those are both great ideas. I think it's really important, though, when developing Cherry Point, that we take the time to engage all of the stakeholders in anything we do, whether that's energy production or not. So, and that would be, consulting the tribes, consulting the public, consulting county council, the port, and the PUD. Recently the county executive actually asked the PUD for funding to assist with infrastructure, to assist with the Cherry Point development study. And that would be to ascertain what kind of infrastructure changes need to be made to attract industry. Things like roads and rails, access to electric and water. I think it's an important study and it's a good start. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Don Goldberg actually as to which similar studies have previously been done before they allocate funding. But I'm really excited about the future of Cherry Point, and certainly energy production should be one of those things, one of those industries that are developed at Cherry Point.
Thank you. So this is going to be our last question before we move on to closing statements, and we're going to start with candidate Arnett. Do you believe the residents of Whatcom County have a role in the operation of the PUD? And if so, how do you plan to engage and include residents?
I absolutely think that residents have a role, and it's actually one of my campaign priorities is to provide better communication to the community about what services the PUD is offering. I often get blank stares when I say that I'm running for the PUD Commission. Part of the reason for that is that our PUD doesn't offer direct services to the public. And part is because we have no official communication plan or even a communication officer. Public input's vital to public office, and it's high time that the PUD was transparent and proactively reaching out to the community. And so, ways that I would address that, they really need to have social media. They really need to be sending out more surveys to the public. A newsletter would be nice. I think that they could improve their website. I'm really grateful to Commissioner Grant for ensuring that, they have a YouTube channel now so that you can actually watch the PUD meetings after the fact. Before you couldn't do that. And they're at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. So it wasn't really accessible to other people. And now it is. I think that there's a lot that needs to be done, and I think it needs to be a priority.
Thank you. Candidate Davidson, the last question for you. Do you believe the residents of Whatcom County have a role in the operation of the PUD? And if so, how do you plan to engage and include residents?
Oh, I absolutely believe that they play a role in the PUD. You know, on the Blaine City Council, I don't just work. I just don't work for my district. I work for all of Blaine. I'm also on tourism committees, and I work with all the county. With WTA, with the Whatcom Transportation Service, I work with people from all over the county. And you have to get input for these organizations to work. You have to get input from everybody in the county, and the PUD is no different. Jamie's right. They do not have the kind of media presence that they really need to have, and I think you can say that about a lot of municipalities in Whatcom County. But it's something that it has to happen. They have to be on Facebook. They have to get out there on the internet. They have to make them accessible. There's no reason that if you know, the average person in Whatcom County wanted to know something about the PUD, that they couldn't go to the app and see what the latest news is on the PUD, on the county, on all the municipalities, really. And I think that's something that could be huge, and that would get involvement more, and you'd get a better idea of kind of really what the needs are and the wants of the people out there.
Thank you. We're moving on to a closing statement. So candidate Davidson, you'll have 1 minute to make your closing statement.
Well, I really want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here. And I want to thank Jaime for being here and running. I've known Jaime for a long time, and I respect her a lot. I feel like that this is a great time for Whatcom County, but there's a lot of challenges that are moving forward, that we have moving forward. And it's never an easy solution when we're talking about something so big. But it is something that we need to work really hard on, and we need to all get involved, not just as a PUD, but as a community. And I want to say that my experience in the last 5 years on the Blaine City Council and the last 10 years working in the city of Blaine, particularly in public works with electrical, sewer, water, has really given me a good insight and a vision to work on the PUD. And I hope you vote Eric Davidson in November.
Thank you. Candidate Arnett, your closing statement, please.
Yeah, first, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I feel called to run for this position because I want to serve Whatcom County. I've spent the majority of my career in service to my community, either through housing programs or providing mental and behavioral health services. I'm the only candidate with firsthand experience working with the commercial fishing industry and working with farmers. My father worked for Blaine Public Works as a water quality specialist for 32 years. My brother is a senior operator at the Grand Coulee Dam. As funny as it may sound, public utilities is something that we discuss over dinner. I'm also from here. I'm local. I understand the unique needs of my community, and I believe that I can get more stakeholders to the table to discuss the issues we're facing. I'm endorsed by Lummi Nation, the Whatcom Democrats, the Riveters Collective, and the 42nd LD Democrats. I'm also endorsed by Representatives Sharon Shoemake and Alex Rammel, County Council members Carol Frazee and Kaylee Galloway. You can learn more about my campaign at jamiearnett.com. I'd be honored to earn your vote.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I thank both candidates for being here today and for their interest in running for public office. Voters can find more information about candidates online at vote411.org and in your voter pamphlet. Ballots will be mailed October 21st, 2022, and your ballot must be postmarked or in a ballot drop box before 8 p.m. on November 8th. Please remember to sign the ballot envelope, and if mailing by postal service, we recommend that you mail early. Thank you for joining us this evening.